All right. There are lots of different approaches to making abstract art. Earlier this week, I had you explore on little pieces the 10 like classic design compositions that David Kessler had showed us. And your experiments look great. I have some of mine that are like unfinished. And this gives me an opportunity to sort of explore a couple of other things. So this one was supposed to be my curvilinear and it was just wet into wet. I never finished it. I can come back now and I could do this with a paintbrush with black ink, or I happen to have a pen that is like a little paintbrush, and maybe I decide I want to doodle a little over the top of this. Another kind of fun way that you can doodle on top of or under or before is to use color crayon, or if you have them, oil pastels. Both would resist the watercolor. So like before you paint, if you put some crayon down on the piece of paper, you would have kind of that effect. So here, this little guy feels a little more finished now with a little addition of some pen work, which was sort of fun to add. So don't be afraid, like if you feel like looking back at my experiments from the other day using the compositions, I just didn't feel like they were very finished, but I guess because I never really went back and added any like dry paint techniques to them, this kind of doodling step is sort of fun. So I would encourage you, go back to some of the ones you don't like and maybe give them a bit of a doodle. I don't even remember which one this one is. I did such a poor job of it. It's maybe supposed to be verticals. Again, I could play with my brush. I also have like some markers and things here in my studio, so I could continue this sort of exploration of some of the supplies that I have here. Color crayons again would work. So thinking about how you can kind of explore or change even some of your experiments from the other day is kind of a fun idea. I have to tell you guys, abstract art is not always something I'm a huge fan of, so I don't do a lot of it. So know that I'm sort of experimenting along with you guys with this sort of thought. So you can see me just sort of playing around with some of my tiny experiments from earlier this week. I can also take, this is my sketchbook paper, and now I have ink on it, but whatever. I'm going to go ahead and experiment with some other abstract techniques. One kind of fun abstract technique that you can use in addition to this like doodle over the top of the paint kind of thing is to explore some collage. So one good collage thing that you guys get, your parents are probably getting bills in the mail, right? And bills come with these envelopes that have super fun insides. And this is even kind of fun to explore. Like you can play around with even this clear window. Like this clear window idea is sort of interesting that it, to play with that. But look, I get this great like collage paper from the insides of these envelopes. So these are just two that came in the mail this week, and I hung on to them knowing that we were working on some abstract kind of stuff and that it might be fun to play with these patterns. So if you have stuff like this, you know, collaging that in, even thinking about just ripping, kind of tearing, and what sort of shapes does that make? How can you add that in? Oh, that's sort of a cool cool shapes. So you can see if I'm going to start playing around with some collage-y sort of stuff, I'm going to just sort of start exploring what I can do with some collage. And then I have to decide, do I want to paint first? Do I want to paint after and glue next? So these will be like some discussions that I'm going to have with myself now as I'm thinking about playing around with some of this collage-y stuff. Like, do I collage first and paint? Do I paint then collage? I think I might paint, actually. Obviously, it's totally up to you. So don't be afraid to explore, particularly if you happen to have some other art supplies at home. Oh yeah, that's kind of fun. Okay, so I'm gonna keep those. So you can see they'll sort of be the basis for a little bit of a composition that I'll work on. It's got some verticals. It's got some, we'll see what sort of shapes I can come up with as I continue to work on this. But I want you guys to kind of play with making a larger abstract composition. You can go ahead and use your sketchbook. You can continue with these ideas from before. Another fun thing to do is kind of use some drier paint and do some shapes. I don't have any paint that I put a lot of water in. Let's see if I can get something going here. And think about your paintbrush. So I gave you guys a paintbrush that is square, and you have a larger one that's round. This square guy can be kind of fun for adding like shapes. So I just mixed up some really dark navy blue paint out of the palette over here, and very little water. And you can see that because it's a square brush, I'm getting this really lovely square line. So thinking about mark making in particular and how you can use layers. So you can see that some of my other colors, because watercolor is transparent, is going to show through. And this guy was the cruciform beginning from the other day. And now I think I'm going to grab a little more water. So if you liked the little format, go ahead and play with more littles. We'll call them littles. Sometimes it's fun to do small. Other times small feels a little limiting. So it depends on how you felt about small. But you can see that I can keep working with this little guy. Or creating new ones, or creating a larger one, or doing all of them, right? Now I'm going to play with some wet into wet. So I've got this kind of golden color, the golden yellow color sort of mixed up. And I'm going to stripe in this opposite direction, just sort of see what happens. So you can see I'm going to pull some of that out. Now I have a new color that's here. So go ahead and basically play. This is what, I think this is when abstract is the best, is when you are willing to play and experiment and sort of explore what some of the possibilities are, and just not being afraid to kind of mess it up. It is just a painting after all, just a little one at that. So like, be fearless and go ahead and play around with this abstract-y sort of idea and see what you come up with. Some of them will be good. Some of them might be a little funky. Oh, that one's starting to be kind of fun. I feel like I could do this most of the day. Actually, doing this most of the day might be really good for me. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes the struggle bus comes a little early when we're doing the online learning thing. And this kind of playing around with the watercolor sort of feels good, feels nice. So go ahead and play around, explore some more abstract experiments. Like I said, you can go back and layer over some of your little guys from earlier, whether that means you ink over them or paint over them, just depending. I'm starting to, like I said, feel a little bit happier with some of these. And then feel free to explore something larger with a little bit of collage. I'm going to keep playing with this. I might try to do a time lapse for you guys and show you what I do with this kind of bigger abstract thing, because I think it's going to take me a while to play around with this idea. Have fun.